After the Armageddon. Western coast of South America, 100 million years after the extinction of mankind, we have arrived to a large extension of desert that covers most of what used to be Chile and Peru. If we take a look at how ecosystems and geographic regions used to look 100 million years ago before the mass extinction, most of them look nothing alike to how they look right now. However, this place, known as the Atacama Desert, has been a desert since sauropods roamed the land, and with higher temperatures and the Andes Mountains still continuously growing, stopping rain and humidity that reach these lands, this place is still as dry as it gets. However, even in the harshest environments of Earth, life manages to adapt and survive. Across the endless sea of eternal sands, a green and very alive plant disrupts the monotony of the desert. This is a caudicia, a 1-meter-tall flowering plant that can only be found in the middle of this desert. This plant is as efficient in the use of water as any member of the grass family. But no other grass here looks so lively. This is because this particular plant has a personal team of gardeners taking care of it needs. Flying around the plant, these are commonly known as the northern black wasps, a small species of eusocial wasp that thrives in these arid lands. These two organisms have a symbiotic relationship. During the most desperate days, the colony will feed at the tubers of the plant, getting all the water and nutrients they need to survive from the plant. While this obviously harms the plant, but the wasps repay this tenfold by not only pollinating the flowers of these plants, but also protecting them from herbivores, cleaning them off parasites, and offering them the most valuable substance in the desert, water. They are one of 2 species of this planet that have ever developed aqueducts, the only other one being the now extinct humans. While the aqueducts of the black wasps never surpass the 150 meters in length, that's still an impressive feat for a group of workers that average 7 millimeters in size. These wasps are able not only to dig out tunnels as efficiently as ants, but they can also segregate a waxy substance from their abdomen that makes these tunnels waterproof, creating a complex web of piping going all the way from nearby subterranean rivers to the plant's roots. Aside from these water distribution systems, the workers will also build a set of ventilation ducts, with a curvature similar to the one of the clay wasps of the Anthropocene, and several chambers. These ones are protected from the water by intermediate chambers that serve the only purpose to be filled with water in case the water level of the underground rivers gets higher than normal. Like during the rare but powerful rainfalls and storms that happen in the desert every few years, the dry chambers are used for several purposes, including storing food, nursing the queen and her newborn offspring, and be a resting spot for tired workers, scouts, and soldiers. Aside from taking care of the caudicia, the wasps also pollinate several species of cactus that inhabit the desert. The scouts, the only ones with wings, or at least the only ones that retain them through all their lives, will fly looking for plants that show evidence of underground water, as well as for flower to gather nectar to feed themselves and share with the colony. Workers, on the other hand, are born flightless and smaller, and will spend their lives digging tunnels. Their vision is poor, and they find their way across the tunnels by feeling the world that surrounds them with their antennae, and by detection chemical signals the other workers leave. The soldiers, of which there are few in every colony, are similar to the workers, but around twice their size, and are only active if wasps of a different colony try to invade. In the case a predator attacks the nest, both soldiers and scouts would use their stingers to attack the soft skin of ears and eyelids on a desperate attempt to make them leave. These stings are similarly painful to the ones of a honeybee, but much more numerous as they don't die after the first one. Lastly, the drones and the queen. They are born out of every 1,000 workers and leave the colony minutes after becoming adults. They will fly away to form their own colony, or in the case of drones, integrate to another one. After mating, drones die, while females start to grow in size to more than 10 times their original length. They lose their wings and devote the rest of their lives to lay eggs and be feeded and protected by her daughters. We leave the wasps behind to continue exploring the desert. Not too far away we encounter a small reptile, This is a yellow fencing tortoise, a common inhabitant of South America's arid and semi-arid regions. They are perfectly adapted to survive with little to no water, getting most of the moisture their bodies require from the plants they eat. In this desert we can find several grasses, cactus, and some conifers. The last ones represent half of the diet of these creatures. In rare occasions they will also eat a small insect that crosses their path. They are small, no bigger than a red-eared slider, and generally not very active. This allows them to survive with few resources. During the hottest hours of the day they will hide inside small burrows or rest in the shadow that the few rocks and plants of the desert provide. Also during most of the cold night they will also remain immobile, only occasionally taking a few bites of vegetation between short periods of sleep. While females look pretty much as any other small species of tortoise, the males have an elongated protruding extension coming out of the first section of their plastron. This, as their name implies, is used for fencing. During interspecific fights for mating rights, males will try to use these protrusions to hurt and flip each other's, until one surrenders or gets flipped. In that position it will most likely die due to overheating or dehydration. Some fortunate individuals manage to get back on feet after struggling for a while, but most of them fail trying to do so. After mating, the female will lay between 10 and 20 small round eggs in a small burrow and cover them with sand. The babies, no bigger than a ping pong ball, will be born after 2 months, and will have to survive on their own since their first breathe, if they manage to hatch, that is, as there are many creatures that would be more than happy to assault the nest and eat the eggs while the baby's still developing, like this adult male shokut, around the size of a cat. This opportunistic generalist omnivore will feed on almost anything, from prickly fruits to lizards and tortoise eggs. This meal can keep him alive for around a week. Is likely it will not eat all the eggs in one sitting, instead return to the nest several times, eating 2 or 3 each night, covering them up with sand so no other creature finds them. These animals active in short periods of time through the day and night. During the hot hours of the day, their large ears help them dissipate heat and their tail is useful as a parasol. Their long flexible snouts not only provide them a great sense of smell, but also help moisturize the dry air of their environment. With all of this, they are perfectly adapted for life in the desert. They are solitary, only ever getting together to mate. Males will chase away another male that they encounter in their territory, and occasionally engage in small fights. Never getting too serious, females are generally less aggressive, but if they have pups they will also become very territorial, as other females could see those pups as a food source. We continue advancing through the desert until something caught our attention. A series of pillars disrupting the monotony of the sands that surrounds them. On top of them, we can see the builders responsible for creating them, the clay sparrow. These birds are descendants of the Andean sparrows, and have been living in these lands since before the mass extinction. They are around the same size as their ancestors, yet males build clay pillars that can reach almost 2 meters in height. These pillars are made out of an extremely hard and resistant mix of vegetation, clay, and salt they collect from the brine pools and seasonal salt rivers of the desert. On top of the hollow pillars, a chamber around the size of a tennis ball serves as the perfect nesting spot for the female that decides to mate with them. Far off the ground where snakes or shokuts could devour the chicks, as well as protected from the harsh sunlight. Pillars generally last very long, so males can spend many years in the same one, and some will even take an empty one that belongs to a male that is already dead. In some areas some bats have also been observed making use of abandoned pillars to rest and sleep. Outside of the breeding season the birds will spend their time foraging for insects and other small animals, as well as grooming each other's and taking naps in shady places. They have very few predators and most of them get to live up to their 10th birthday, a relatively long life for such a small animal. We observe an elderly male flying and suddenly it dies. The small animal remains immobile in the sand. After 9 successful mating seasons, after a life of thriving in one of the planet's harshest environments, its body finally gave up. Around the bird a few pebbles move. In dead life is also present. As the fluids of the bird escape its corpse, a bunch of Lazarus worms wake up from their slumber. These are small terrestrial polychaete worms, no bigger than a sunflower. These animals spend most of their lives in a state of cryptobiosis, a state in which all their metabolic processes stop and they remain immobile and apparently dead for as much time as needed, waiting for the environmental conditions to improve. In the case of this worms, they will enter their slumber when they feel the environment around them to dry up, which is pretty much all the time, and wake up when they feel moisture. This way they wait the ever so rare storms that hit the desert every few years. During the days following the storm, the worms will feed upon any sort of organic matter they can find and reproduce as fast as possible. In less than a week the dirt will become again dry and hard, and the worms will cling onto each other's and secrete a sticky mucus that on contact with air will solidify, forming a protective cocoon around them. Inside the cocoon the worms will go back to their near-dead state, to wait for the next storm, or the next animal, dropping dead on top of them. We start heading off to the camp as the heat is starting to affect us. Near the camp we encounter another native invertebrate, the aerolith, a species of scorpion that has evolved a similar body plan to the one of some Anthropocene spiders. With extremely long legs and a very reduced tail, they can move very efficiently across the hot sands of the desert, in constant search for prey. While they can eat almost anything smaller than them, their favorite prey by far are spiders. Several tarantulas and a few brown recluse relatives can make up to 50% of its diet. Aside from that, they have occasionally been observed eating crickets, other scorpions and beetles. They are generally solitary animals, but unlike most arthropods they exhibit an impressive amount of parental care. Females will not only dig a small burrow to protect her eggs but will also wait there for weeks, cleaning the eggs and ensuring no other predator approaches them. Once the eggs are about to hatch she will lay a second batch of eggs, this time unfertilized ones, and leave. The newborn aeroliths will feed of their own eggs, and then proceed to start devouring the unfertilized ones. While the babies might not have actually met their mother, they will survive their first days of life being fed by her. We arrive to the camp and after resting for a couple hours we continue exploring. It's already 6 p.m. and the heat starts to become a bit more bearable. After a couple miles we stumble upon a large lizard basking in the sun, the sailback curaiwa, one of the largest species of reptile endemic to this desert. Females average 3 kilograms in weight, and males are around twice as big as them. This species is a descendant of lialeamid small lizards that inhabited these lands all the way back in the Anthropocene. However, unlike their insectivorous ancestors, the curaiwa satisfies its appetite with smaller lizards and mammals, as well as cactus and succulents. They can eat a third of their body weight in one sitting, and then wait for several weeks before deciding to go foraging again. Both males and females have enlarged neural spines supporting flaps of heavily vascularized skin that form the sail that give the species its name. However, the one of males is bigger and has a characteristic pattern of small orange dots. The sails serve both a sexual and intimidatory display purpose as well as something being directly positioned against the sun to quickly warm up during the morning, allowing the ectothermic reptiles to forage at hours other similar reptile would still be lethargic from the cold desert nights. Another weird display structure is in the lizard's throat, a series of orange dots around an air sac that can be inflated when they want to impress a female. If the males display success, the female will show him her rear and they will mate. After mating the female will dig several holes, laying only 2 or 3 eggs on each one, until she has laid between 16 and 25. This ensures that even if a predator finds one clutch the rest will still have a chance to develop and hatch. The babies are born fully independent and can hunt on their own from the start, however they are very small, around 3 to 4 inches long, and have to be wary because there are many bigger lizards that could try to eat them, including adults of their own species. After a few minutes of leaving behind the lizards we notice a small bump on the sand. Upon closer inspection it seems to have eyes. The Atacama sand trap toad is a small amphibian native to this desert that covers itself with sand in order to ambush small insects that pass by. The frog is very small, never exceeding the 3 inches in length, and with a rather flat body that can easily be hidden in any place of the desert. They spend most of the day hidden like this, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes the whole day can pass without any suitable prey coming closer, but the low metabolism of the toad makes it possible for it to survive even for a week without food. Now during the night, they get more active, and are free to roam the desert to find better hunting grounds, actively forage for nocturnal animals and find a mate. It's hard for such a small creature to find another of their kind in such an endless ocean of sand, so as soon as a male finds a female he will crawl up to her and remain attached until she lays her eggs. Mating takes place underground, and soon after fertilization, the eggs are swallowed by the father. The tadpoles develop inside the father's mouth in a matter of 2 weeks and come out as fully formed toadlets that can fend for themselves from the start. We finally leave the small toad alone and go back to the camp. Our journey through this desert is finally over, but our exploration of the world 100 million years after the extinction of mankind will continue.